I remembered when I went on this job shadow, and instead of being down in the cameras and stuff, for some reason I went up to the 3rd floor, the building at WOODTV. And we did this whole job shadow. We went for a day, went to WOODTV, got to experience the high schoolers come through. We take notes for junior achievement, and experience one day in television broadcast. So instead of hanging in the newsroom, I went to the 3rd floor, and I met this lady by the name of Diane Kanowski. Yeah. And at the time, she was
running the show.
Running the show.
Yeah.
And so I, still had that business card that I took from that job shadow.
Yeah.
And so laptop and camera in hand, I was like, let me just call her. Set up some meetings, and we started getting coffee and food, and every month it was a thing. I was working at, I was still working at Little Caesars, but my parents they were like, okay, you're actively trying, so we're going to give this kid a shot. We know, like...
Bought you some time.
Bought me some time. So finally, there was a thing called WOTV for women that she was developing.
Miranda, all those people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this
Lori's a friend of ours.
I ended up coming in right as that's being developed.
Yeah.
She's got the whiteboard with everything in her executive office. So she brings me back one day after lunch, and we get into her office, and she's just like flushing out ideas. I go, listen, I gotta tell you, like, I dropped out of college. She's like, what? And I said, yeah, I dropped out of college. And she goes, okay, what are you gonna do next? And I really loved that was like, it wasn't a defining, because I was kind of scared. I was just like, what is she going to think of me now? Is she still going to,
because when you met her on that job shadow and that day at Wood, you just met her and then continued that relationship just as kind of like a mentor in the broadcast industry.
Exactly.
You were just like a touch base every so often.
In the thing in the TV broadcast world, it's like your senior year of college, you can then get a real internship with them. Yeah. And usually they're more likely at like a station like this market in Grand Rapids, you can turnkey and go from an intern, and they hire within.
Yeah.
So, but I had just dropped out of college.
Right.
So it was great. She's flushing out ideas. She's like, Josh, go out, just go shoot some stuff for me, ask people on the street some questions, some field questions, do some spec work for me.
That was all spec. Just like you were auditioning, basically.
Yes. And so finally, I get to a point months later where I was like, this spec work is beautiful. Thank you so much. Parents are not happy yet. This is not a full-time job. Right. I'm going to be booted from my house and going to have to live on my own, if I don't make something shake. She's like, okay, well, let's get back to the station. Let's try to figure out where we can, fit you in, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Starts flipping through jobs, nothing. I mean, it's like accounting, sales. I'm like, there's nowhere near anything for me to do.
You're like, janitor, I'll do anything.
Exactly. So I leave that meeting and get a call 3 days later, and a weekend overnight position opened up at WOODTV. And she calls me. She's like, hey, you're going to come in. You're going to interview just like I would do with anybody else. Yeah, I am the GM, so my influence is pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But you still need to put in the work. Great. Put on my best suit and tie, walk into the interview. She's there. It was great. The station manager at the time interviewed me, and obviously her recommendation was amazing to have.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting that job, and I worked as a 19-year-old. I was hired there at 19.
You said it was overnight?
Weekend overnight. So I worked Nightcrawler, the movie Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
I worked midnight to noon the next day.
Yeah.
I did that for Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday during the day, I worked a day shift. That was the only day shift they gave me.
So you just kept working through, like a 24-hour shift almost.
Exactly.
Wow.
So I ended up working that for 2.5 years.
The Full Exposure Podcast is brought to you by Metro Health, University of Michigan Health, and Dr. Peter Hahn, in appreciation of the creative and artistic visionaries who enrich our lives through cultural connections.